Have you ever wished your doorway was just a little bit wider? Maybe your wheelchair almost fits, maybe your walker keeps hitting the door frame, or maybe you simply need another inch or two of clearance. Before you think about widening the doorway or replacing the entire door, there is a much simpler option you should know about. It's called a clear swing hinge, sometimes called an offset hinge. A standard door hinge leaves part of the door sitting inside the doorway even when the door is fully open. A clear swing hinge changes the position of the door as it opens and allows the door to swing farther out of the clear opening. Depending on the door and the hinge being used, this can give you approximately 2 inches of additional clear width. 2 inches may not sound like much, but if you use a wheelchair, walker, or other mobility device, sometimes a couple of inches can make a huge difference. And compared with widening a doorway, replacing the hinges can be a much simpler and more cost-effective solution. But before you go out and buy clear swing hinges, there are several things you need to check. The first thing is whether your door is left-hand or right-hand swing. This can sound confusing, but there is a very easy way to figure it out. Stand on the side of the door where you can see the hinges. Face the door and put one hand on the hinges side and your other hand on the door handle. Now look at which hand is holding the door handle. If you are holding handle with your left hand, you have a left hand door swing. If you're holding the handle with your right hand, you have a right hand door swing. For example, in this photo, I'm standing on the side where I can see the hinges. One hand is toward the hinges and my left hand is holding the door handle. So this is a left hand swing door. That's a very simple way to remember it when you are checking your own door. Once you know the handling of the door, the next thing I would check is how many hinges you actually have. Don't automatically assume that every door has 3 hinges. Some doors have 2, many residential doors have 3, and larger or heavier doors may have 4 or more. Count what you currently have because normally you'll want the appropriate number of clear swing hinges to properly support that door. Then take a closer look at the existing hinge itself. Check the dimensions of the hinge. Also look at the shape of the corners. Some hinges have square corners and others have rounded corners. And one of the easiest things to overlook is the screw hole pattern. Count the holes. You may find a hinge with 3 screw holes on each leaf, while another design may have 4 or a different pattern. You don't want to order a hinge simply because it looks approximately the same size. Ideally, you want to confirm the dimensions, hole pattern, hinge configuration, door handling if required by that hinge design, and whether the hinge is suitable for the weight and type of door you have. There is another very important thing I check before recommending clear swing hinges. Look at what's behind the door when it opens. Remember, the whole purpose of the clear swing hinge is to move the door farther out of the opening. That means the door needs enough space to actually move into that new position. If there is a wall directly behind it, a cabinet, shelving, another door, or some other obstruction, the door may not be able to open far enough. And if the door can't reach the required open position, you may not get the additional clear width you were expecting. So don't just measure the doorway. Look at the entire area around the door, then I would measure the actual clear opening. This is another important distinction. If someone tells me they have a 30-inch door, that doesn't necessarily mean they have 30 inches of usable clearance. What matters for accessibility is the clear space you actually have to pass through when the door is open. So open the door fully and measure the clear opening at the narrowest point. Then compare that with what you need for the person and their mobility equipment. If you are only short by an inch or 2, that's exactly where a solution like clear swing hinges may be worth considering. But if the opening is significantly too narrow, clear swing hinges aren't going to magically solve the entire problem. At that point, we may need to look at other options. That could mean widening the doorway, changing the door configuration, using a sliding or pocket door where appropriate, or considering another modification. That's why I like to start with the least invasive solution and work from there. This is especially important when we are talking about wheelchair accessibility. Sometimes when we look at the doorway, 2 inches seems insignificant. But when someone is trying to get through that doorway several times every single day, those 2 inches can make a major difference. It can mean less contact with the door frame. It can make maneuvering easier in the right situation. It can improve accessibility without requiring a major renovation. So if you are considering clear swing hinges, remember these basic checks. First, identify whether you have a left hand or right hand door swing. Stand on the side where you can see the hinges, put the hand toward the hinges and the other hand on the handle, and the hand holding the handle tells you the handing. Then count how many hinges you have, check the hinge dimensions and shape, count and compare the screw holes, make sure the replacement hinge is appropriate for your door, check that you have enough space behind the door for sewing further, and finally measure your existing clear opening and determine whether the additional clearance will actually solve your accessibility problem. Clear sewing hinges won't work for every doorway, but when you are only looking for a couple of extra inches, they can be one of the simplest and most cost-effective accessibility modifications to consider. And that's why before making a major structural change to a doorway, I always think it is worth checking whether a smaller solution could give you the space you need.